Hello, happy June 1st, happy Pride Month. Let's talk about my May wrap up. I read 9 books and they're kind of all over the place, so I'm just going to go in the order that I read them, give you my ratings, whether or not I recommend them, all that fun stuff. So first up, we have Left of Forever by Tara DeWitt. This is the second book in the Spoons Oregon series. I had such a good time. This was the easiest 5 stars of the month. I love Renan Ellis so freaking much. I read Savor It a couple of days before I jumped into Left of Forever, and those were my first 2 Tara DeWitt books ever. I can't believe it took me so long to read her books because she is so good. She reminds me in her writing style a lot of Hannah Bonham Young. They both know how to give you a very full and lively feeling story in a short 325 pages. And you don't feel like you're missing any emotional depth or connection. I loved all the characters I met immediately, and it was very easy to dive into their story and feel like I was a part of it, and I loved that. Left of Forever follows Renan Ellis, who were essentially high school sweethearts, and even before that, they had been friends since they were kids. Things change when they realize they have a crush on each other, they start dating, and then they end up with their son Sam when they're 18 years old. And what a time to start your life. They both are going through some grieving of their own, and also are now teen parents and also pseudo-parents to Ellis's siblings because his parents have gone through some things, and you're feeling so much for both of them. And when we initially meet them, they have been divorced for 5 years, but they are co-parenting their son Sam. He's about to go off for college. And neither of them is over the other one, but neither of them knows that. My favorite kind of second chance. And the reason it's my favorite kind of second chance is as we're reading this story, you can tell that they both have done some work from where they were 5 years ago. And in theory, it's to move forward, but I think it's mostly to bring peace to themselves. I think one of the things people complain about a lot with Second Chance is they can't see a reason for two characters to get back together. And I did not have that feeling at all with this. I was rooting for them to get back together from the jump. The therapy Ellis does and the way he communicates now, it's great. It's fantastic. If you enjoy a road trip novel, also good for you. I feel like it's only the road trip's half the book-ish. It starts kind of later into the story than you would think it would. They go to drop their son Sam off, and then they kind of take the scenic trip back, trying to figure out if they can work their way back to each other. And it's fun. There's some hijinks along the way. It gets a little steamy, but mostly it is just really sweet and heartwarming, and you might cry a little bit, or a lot. Maybe a lot. After that, I read what I can only describe as a werewolf book ad that happens to you on Instagram sometimes, and then I found it online and I read it all in one sitting. It's Luna Grace by Christopher Ann. I gave this 3 stars. I was in a depression spiral. I have no other things to say about that. Okay, and then I read The Man Made of Smoke by Alex North. This was my first Alex North. I mix him and Alex Finley up a lot. Apologies to both of them for doing that. I won't be doing that any further because Alex North is my favorite. He's my favorite of the 2 Alexes. This is following a guy named Daniel, I believe. His life is haunted by this road trip he took with his family and this girl he had a crush on who also was his friend at the time. I want to say they're probably 13, 14 when this happens. They stop at a rest stop for, gas, bathroom, all that stuff. And he goes to the restroom and he sees this little boy in there and just gets that feeling in the pit of his stomach like something's not right. He can hear an adult in the bathroom and he just gets chills, creepy feelings. So he hides in a bathroom stall, and that scene haunts him basically for the rest of his adult life. And then things start happening that soon make him realize are connected back to that afternoon, but he doesn't exactly know who's doing it or why. And it's just chaos. And also his dad's involved. His dad and him have a very estranged relationship. But they're both trying their best. I don't want to give you too much more than this because this is the kind of mystery thriller where the less you know, the better going into it and to just experience it. If you can get the audiobook of this, I highly recommend it. Highly recommend the audio. It was eerily creepy in the beginning. It goes by very fast. I want to say this is a tight 320, 330 page book, which is my favorite length for mystery thriller. It was excellent. Not a page wasted. After this, I read Dream On, Ramona Riley by Ashley Herring Blake. This is actually my first Ashley Herring Blake. And I gave it 3.5 stars. I listened to the audio for the most part, and I had a okay time, but something was just off and missing for me, and I don't... One of the things that bothered me right from the beginning, actually. Ramona is, I want to say, her early 30s, and she left for college, and her dad got hurt, and so she moved home to take care of her younger sister, and her younger sister is now 18, about to graduate high school, go off to college on a softball scholarship, which I was like, that's so exciting. One of my favorite sports. I love when there's a little crossover. Then she goes, and she's got that full ride to Vanderbilt in Tennessee. This is so niche, but I live in SEC country, okay? Southeastern Conference. It is the powerhouse of softball in the United States for college. Vanderbilt is in the SEC. The SEC is comprised now of 16 schools, with Texas and Oklahoma joining this year. The one school out of all 16 that does not have a softball team is Vanderbilt. It is common knowledge if you know anything about softball. And if you don't, if you take about 4 seconds to Google, you'll know immediately that they don't have one. And there are no plans to start one. And it's like repeated several times in the book, and I'm like, it's not real. That's not a thing. And I know it's fiction, but I'm like, if you're going to bring in a very real thing from our contemporary times, make it correct. Or put a note in the beginning that you're like, hey, I didn't want to have to get permission from some other school to mention their softball team, so I intentionally picked one that didn't have one. Because I have seen that before, especially in sports romances, where they'll be like, oh, I didn't want to get in trouble for, say, using the Dallas Stars as a hockey team in my hockey romance, so I'm calling them the Houston Stars, even though we both know that doesn't exist. And I go, okay, fine. Appreciate it. Get it. 100% get it. She didn't do that in this. And that bothered me. That was a little thing. But after that, the thing that also really bothered me is the primary conflict of the story could have been fixed if they both had just opened their mouths. There were multiple moments where I was like, but if you just talk to each other. And it wouldn't have taken away from the story because there are other elements going on with the things that they did not communicate about that were already going to be problems for them and would have already been fine for the central conflict. And if they had just used their little mouths and talked to each other, it would have been fine. I also feel like the resolution was it just tidied up really easily. And I don't know. Maybe I'll read another Ashley Herring Blake. Feels a little phobic of me to be talking on June 1st about how I didn't really enjoy her book, but what can I say? I had a good time, not a great time. And everyone was talking about how great Ashley Herring Blake is, and I was just like, but where? Where? So maybe I'll try another one. We'll see. After this, I read Not Safe for Work by Nisha J. Tooley, and I gave this one 4 stars. This one I actually had a kind of a hard time getting into initially, but once I was in, I was invested. This is following Trishara, who goes by Trish, and why did I forget the dude's name? Rafe Gallagher. Okay. Anyway, so we're following Trish and Rafe, and they are at a resort, I think in Hawaii, for a work conference. It's also kind of doubling as vacation for both of them. The company they work for is owned by Rafe's family, but he doesn't want to be a Nepo baby in the firm. He would like to do his secret hobby, which I will not mention because it comes up in the story and I think the reveal is great. So I don't want to spoil that for you. But Trish doesn't know that. They have been nemesis since he came in and took over the team lead position, or got awarded that when she had been working so hard. She'd been in the company for 5 years at this point. And on paper, she's the kind of person where you go, of course you would give her the promotion if she's up for it. But she just kept getting beat out by mediocre white men. And she's like, it's time for me to move on. But then the company is like, actually, you're going to be a part of this leadership group that we're sending down to Hawaii for the thing. And we're sending, 2 people from each of our locations. And then if you do super well in that, you get chosen for this leadership track in the company. And she's like, okay, finally, whatever. And she goes. But there is a lot of other things going on in this. So we have her own history with dating men at work. It's not a good one. We have her having a crush on this man and thinking he has a girlfriend, so she's been trying to kind of get that out of her system. But then she overhears him like fighting with the girlfriend on the phone and like discovering some things. 3, there is an ongoing sense of just misogyny, sexual harassment in the workplace and things at this company that's very pervasive. Also, they really struggle with diversity, and you can tell by the very clearly like hand-chosen diversity picks for this like leadership retreat that they decided on. I did enjoy the friendship that came from the women, especially it's funny that they were all women and they were all women of color. Then they found each other at this retreat like, okay, so obviously we were the token ones, like let's stick together. And I did enjoy their energy. I also really enjoyed how honest Rafe was with Triss when she would give him the space to speak. I think that was one of the things I didn't really love. This was, I don't want to say it was never rivals to lovers, because they talk about, and I think this is part of the problem, they talk about it but don't really show us historically how their dynamic was, but we do see them be rivals in like the breakout groups and different projects they have as they're on this trip. The spicy scenes were steamy and they were good. The lead up into it I really struggled with, but then like once we were in it and they were like hooking up and having a good time, like I was having a good time with that. But then I also kind of struggled with the end, and so now I feel like I'm talking myself out of this 4-star rating, but that was just the vibe I was feeling when it was over. You know, maybe it's more of a 3.5, but it was a good first shot at contemporary romance. Nisha J. Tooley usually writes romantasy, which I think she does very well. And I think it may be kind of natural for this first run to be a little, like have a little bit of a stutter step to it, because she does not have the same slow burn lead up that she would if she was writing a romantasy series. So I will check out her next contemporary title, and then we'll decide if contemporary is from Nisha J. Tooley or for me, or if I just stick to her romantasy going forward. After this, I read State Champ by Hilary Plum. This was an interesting one. So this is following a young woman who was a state champion track athlete, goes off to college on a track scholarship, gets into some trouble there, has some issues, comes home and starts working as a receptionist at an abortion clinic. And we are getting her story through these letters that she's writing a ex-situationship who's also a reporter, trying to talk about the hunger strike she's on because the doctor who ran the clinic has now been arrested and subsequently charged for providing women's health care in the state of the United States as it is. I think they're in Georgia, so there's like a heartbeat law and all of that. Conversationally, a lot of the topics are heavy. And there are plenty of content warnings that go along with this book. I recommend looking them up because there's the obvious ones, but then there's some other ones that are going on. Like there's like a disordered eating thing that happens throughout here. And overall, I enjoyed a look at this without it being... Like, this book didn't feel like it was trying to sway me one way or the other on the topic. It didn't feel like... I just didn't feel like it was a part of the fight. And I kind of liked that. I liked that this was a look at the messy life of a person who's just in the controversial topic versus it being about the controversial topic. I mean, it was about it, but I feel like I'm poorly describing this, but it's so hard to explain. This thing's only 216 pages. If you enjoy an epistolary format into a book and you want to look at more of like the humanity side of the things we argue about versus the thing we argue about, I think it's a good time. I gave that 4 stars. And then I went into a Vancouver Storm double feature of The Wingman and Gloves Off by Stephanie Archer. I actually had arcs of both of these. The Wingman I got the arc for last fall when I was in the just doldrums of a sports romance drought. I could not make myself read one if I tried. And so then I didn't, and I was actually really sad that I missed that. But then I was like, you know what? I just got the Gloves Off arc, which this comes out June 17th. And I was like, I should read this and like get ahead. And I did, and I loved it, but I read The Wingman first. The Wingman is my favorite of the two. I gave it 5 stars. And I loved this one because it was just so simple. And I don't mean that like, it's a friends to lovers, it's always been you kind of situation, but it doesn't. Sometimes when there's the it's always been you trope, it just feels so like you're being beaten over the head with the concept. And I just didn't feel that. And I loved that. So we are following Hayden Owens and Darcy, whose last name I can't remember. Darcy and Hayden met, I want to say their freshman year of college. Hayden has always been the guy girls hook up with and never the boyfriend. And it's not because he wants it that way. He actually has a kind of a heartbreaking story of how that started for him. We'll not share that because I think it's an important part of the story. But he and Darcy meet freshman year of college, and one of their other friends mentions that like Hayden's kind of a player, and then that other guy swoops in and starts dating Darcy, despite the fact that Hayden very much has a crush on this girl, wants to be with her. So they have been best friends for years. Darcy has just broken up with that other friend. It has been like a 7-year relationship or something. And through that relationship, Darcy's personality just diminishes. And that man broke her. But like not in the way where he was intentionally trying to be abusive towards her, but just in the way that happens when you are a people pleaser dating someone who's kind of overbearing. And I think in an effort to keep peace and an effort to be, you know, the good supportive hockey girlfriend, like she just kind of went along with things sometimes. And then sometimes she would push back and he would say, hey, you know, we're about to go into like the all-star stretch. Can we just talk about this after season? And to be placating, she would just kind of go along with that, but then like not really get what she needed out of that situation. So now she's living with Hayden and she's trying to find herself again. She's at a job that she hates. And he is trying to help her get back out there by being her wingman because she asks him, because she's never really been with anybody. Like she dated, I think the guy's name was Kit, in college. I don't think she had really been anyone in high school, and she hasn't been out dating since. And so she wants to be safe and she wants to feel like confident and comfortable. And he's like, I'll help you. Through that process, they both realize that they have feelings. He's always had feelings, but she realizes that she has feelings. And that he is reacting to her as if he has feelings and vice versa. It's fun. It's just fun. I highly recommend reading the series in order, not because each book is dependent on the next one in a plot sense, but it is a big cast of characters because it follows a hockey team of close-knit people and their support staff and like the coaches and stuff. And I think it just hits more when you know who everybody is. So I would read them in order. So after that, I read Gloves Off, which kind of pops off a little bit in The Wingman, which is the other reason I think this should be read in order. So Gloves Off follows the goal. Is he a goalie? No, he's a defensive player. Alexei Volkov, I want to say his last name is. He's sometimes affectionately known as the Russian. And then there's the doctor, and her name is Georgia something. I forgot her last name. But Alexei is 35, I want to say, and that's very old for a hockey player, and especially when he plays in a defensive position where you were physically getting beat up all of the time. He and the doctor met when she first came on to be on the medical staff for the Storm, and she essentially calls him a lost cause and tells him that he should just retire. And he hates her from that moment on. He calls her incompetent and something else, and then she hates him from that moment on. So now fast forward several years, they have been sniping and bickering at each other for several books now. And now he feels like his career's threatened a little bit because there's this young kid coming in that his coach is asking him to train. He knows that he's probably a good 2 injuries away from his career being over. He's not ready to retire because hockey has been everything for him and he knows nothing else. He also is a Russian working on a visa in Canada and has been trying to become a permanent citizen and just has been hitting roadblock after roadblock. And his coach, like, off the slide goes, man, it's too bad you're not dating anyone. Like, it'd be really helpful if you were married to a Canadian. Like, that would probably help your cause when the next time you go resubmit whatever. And he's not telling him to, like, get fake married, but like it just sticks in Alexei's head. And he's complaining to his bartender friend. There's like this hole in the wall bar that they go to sometimes, like the people on the team, and he's talking to the bartender, Jordan, who happens to be Georgia's best friend, and he's like complaining about things and like mentions what the coach says. And Georgia also needs to get married to gain an inheritance that her grandfather left for her, but only if she's married. She has a very estranged relationship with that side of the family. She never wanted to touch his money, but the program that she runs at a nearby hospital that supports injury recovery for sports medicine, and she also runs a soccer team for girls who are coming off of injuries and like so that they don't get re-injured but still can channel their competitive energy somewhere. That's threatening to get cut along with the program, and so she's like, damn, I could use that couple $1 million that's sitting there that I refuse to take, but I wouldn't be taking it for me. I would be taking it for the program, and I could just like immediately donate it and just like never see anything about it. And she goes, I would feel okay with that. And she mentions to Jordan that, like, this is the thing that she's probably going to do. Try to figure it out. And so then Jordan's like, Alexi, Georgia, get together. So they get married. And it's chaos. It is tension. It is sniping and being angry at each other. It's so fun. It's so fun. Watching these two, like, learn to care for each other. They also are both, like, the strong ones who take care of everyone else and don't let anyone take care of them. So to watch the two strong ones get to take care of each other, ooh, can't recommend it enough. Had a great time. I liked this one less than The Wingman, but it was still very good. I gave this 4.5 stars. And last but not least, I read Julie Chan is Dead by Leon Zhang. This was fun. I gave that one, I didn't actually give it a rating. I think I would give it 3.5 stars. I had a fun time with it. It just struggled with a few debut author things that can happen. I think if this was maybe her third or fourth book and things were a little more polished, it could very easily be like a 4.5 star read for me. So this is like Yellowface meets Bunny is how I've heard it described. And I can kind of see that. I have not read either of those books, but I know the general synopses of both. And I get that vibe. So we're following Julie Chan in the beginning, who is a broke, I don't even want to say, she's not a college student, but she's kind of that age, I want to say, maybe late 20s. And she has a very famous twin sister. Her twin sister is an influencer with like millions of followers, and they're identical twins. And people often come up to her register, like she's a cashier at some like shitty grocery store, and they often come over like, oh my god, are you doing this for a video, huh? And she's like, no, what are you talking about? And like tries to like play it off as if she doesn't know who her twin sister was. They were raised separately because of a family tragedy when they were like 3 years old. And people go, oh, you're the twin Julie. And they know that because her twin Chloe randomly shows up in her life one day. They do not have a relationship, and she like has a whole TV crew, and she's like, oh my god, Julie, I can't believe it's you, and like does this whole like fake thing, buys her a house across town and like this shitty thing. I don't even think Julie has a car, so it's like one of those things where it's like very clearly like rich overbearing girl comes in and like fixes things, but doesn't fix anything because the house actually isn't that great. It was like a slap together fix up, very TLC style, and because she doesn't know her life, like she knows nothing about the fact that like, oh, how's she going to get to work, and can she even afford the upkeep of a home and all of those things. And then a few chapters later, we find out that Julie has died after she makes this like mysterious phone call to, or sorry, not Julie, that Chloe has died. And we figure that out after she makes this weird, mysterious phone call to Julie. And so Julie is like, something's wrong, something's weird. And Julie's always felt this pull towards her sister, but has never really understood their disconnect. And so she just kind of, I guess maybe in a last-ditch effort, or maybe like in hope to help, goes to New York to, I wanted to call her Julie. She goes to Chloe's apartment in New York, finds Chloe dead, and calls the police, like freaks out. And then as she's like in this state of shock, the police are asking her questions, and she tells them that Chloe's not dead. She tells them that Julie is dead, and then she assumes Chloe's identity. And we go with her on this just crazy journey of her taking over Chloe's life, of her joining this like bunny-esque group of girls that Chloe had previously been a part of. Is it culty? Is it just weird influencer culture? Who knows? There's a remote island that we end up on. Things get very chaotic. If you liked The Writing Retreat by Julia Bartz, this is such a weird comp. But if you liked how like wild the second half of that book was, and the premise of this interests you, I think this would be a good fit. It's one of those endings where you're like, this is so far-fetched and crazy, but it makes for an excellent page turner of a mystery. It was so fun. I will read more from her. I will definitely read more from her. As I mentioned, there were just a few things that bothered me structurally and with like tone changes in the story that I felt could have been done a little smoother to help us see her kind of become Chloe in the beginning. I felt like that part was a little rough. It felt like we went from her trying to wrap her head around, like, can I do this, and like manipulate her way into it, to like suddenly she's like mentally like, I have all these sponsors, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do this, as if she's been in this life for like 8 months. Like, it was just such an aggressive shift at one point, and that part was jarring because I was listening to the audio and I was like, did I black out for a chapter? But I had the ebook, so I went back to look and I was like, no, like the tone just like aggressively shifts. So the tone just aggressively shifted. So I just feel like that's something that just with some time and some practice could happen a little bit better. But other than that, I had a fantastic time. So shout outs to Atria, William Morrow Book Group, and Berkeley. I think those are the 3 that I had arcs from. Oh, and I guess Stephanie Archer directly through Lauren, and not so much Dell Romance, even though Dell Romance is where Gloves Office is being published through. But I was a part of her arc group before she got picked up by Dell, and they've kind of let that live on a little bit, which is interesting. I wonder how that conversation went, because almost every other indie that I used to arc read for that has gotten picked up by like Dell or Dial Press doesn't really have their arc group anymore, and it's all just through NetGalley, but she still sent me the arc like through the normal way. So I don't know, but I'm grateful, as always, to have the opportunity to read some of these books early and yap about them to you. So that's all I have. It was a solid 9 books reading month. And right now I'm just letting myself kind of be. I'm in the middle of a couple things, but not really making pursuits to finish anything. I keep dropping my phone. I'm just going to leave it down there. And I think that I just need to let myself just kind of vibe for a couple days, and then we can dive back into, more arc reading and themed reading blogs. But I say all that to say that sometimes it's okay to need a break and to take a break, and I actually might take a little bit of one, so you might not have a video next week, but probably the week after. I just need a little runway space, So if you made it this far into the video, tell me the book you're most looking forward to that's coming out this summer, and I will see you all in another video soon. Goodbye.